what are the signs of Chiron and Aries working through you? Again, I think I kind of got a little ahead of myself, but this trigger, these triggers of wounds of identity, not knowing if you know who you are, not thinking others know who you are, getting and feeling very angry for not being seen, and also wishing you could just fix yourself, but still just really shutting down. I think all of Chiron is asking, the healing looks like opening, and especially in Aries, it's uncovering this hardening armor that we carry in order to be that warrior we think we need to be in every situation. So Chiron in your natal chart will dictate kind of how that feels for you. Some of you might not be on the, some of you watching this may not be Chiron in Aries, but you still have Aries, and Chiron is in the Aries realm of your chart in order to help you heal that sense. So Chiron is here to help us, all of us, heal some of our self-aggression, our wounded warrior self, and to open us up to a new kind of awareness of ourselves, of being in the world. So I want to transfer this over to Suzette so she can talk about what that looks like.
So to start from a foundational principle is that everything is energy. Everything that you see is made up of molecules and atoms, conducts energy, absorbs energy, releases energy. And it's that energy that connects to the creative source. And some might call it universe, some might call it God, some might call it goddess, some might call it the higher power. I mean, whatever this universal force is, it is the creative power. It is the thing that manifests what it's being fed. So we feed that energy field. There's an energy field. We have our own energy field. The earth has an energy field, and we're all interconnected. So literally, we are all one. We're connected through our energy fields. We are all connected. We are all one. So when we are in despair, or when we're really stressed out, or when we're living with nothing but like tons of anxiety, those produce emotions. And emotion is also energy. And what happens is with these emotions, you begin to feed the field with these emotions. And whatever you feed the field, you resonate at a certain frequency. You're putting out a certain frequency, and like attracts like. So when that happens, if like attracts like, you are bringing more of that suffering into life. So the way this works out, if facing a Chiron return means healing those wounds, it's going to be a lot of energy management, because these wounds have been fed for so long. Energy by focus. Where your attention goes, your energy flows, and so your life is created. So your experience of life is created. So what we're about to speak of today is how to wake up to it, so that you can, with a conscious mind, connected with an open heart, you can see how you are feeding your field, how you are feeding the field and attracting more of the same. And once you wake up to that, you begin to make different choices of, how do I want to feed the field? Do I want to feed it so that I have more opportunities come, more empowerment? Or do I want to feed the spiral, the downward spiral? Do I want to feed the upward spiral, or do I want to feed the downward spiral? Because there's no in between. There's no in between. So it's very important then to remember that everything is energy, and everything we feed it is going to manifest more of it in our lives. So waking up to that is a very crucial first step in surviving a Chiron return. And I'm handing it back over to you, my lovely co-host. I love you so much.
Now I am unmuted. So activating the magic of your heart, you spoke to this. I really want everyone to get a sense of the power of this work, because it's really given me it's you know, it's the spiritual onion that everyone talks about so much, because again, as we talk about how we're wounded and how we've suited up to go into the world in order to protect ourselves based on experience of being wounded, abandoned, shamed, all this stuff. But now we're adults, right? We get to reparent ourselves. We get to have healthier boundaries around our own desires, our own self-care. And this magic of your heart that gets activated when you purposefully seek out activating your heart, and this happens in so many ways, but I want you to tell us about how how this really affects everything, because I think that it changed everything for me.
Yes. Yes, the magic of your heart. When we learn to become empowered beings, when we learn to live from the heart, we learn that the heart is a very, very powerful force that we have complete control over, how we can, really connect with it and allow it to guide us, allow it to receive the intuition to take it to the next step. I mean, it's like, just hone it down to the very first step and follow the heart and tap into it. And harmonizing it, heart and mind need to be harmonized. What happens when we get stuck in a loop, or when we get stuck in our victimhood, is we get stuck in our heads. And it's very important to bring that fear, because fear is false evidence appearing real.
I love that.
And
yes.
When our mind is fixated on a fear, or, stuck on something that maybe needed to be let go, or, stuck in a loop, there's something, the mind is trying to keep us safe based on past traumas or experiences, or how things are supposed to be. And if you don't do exactly what you're supposed to do, you're somehow flawed and bad and whatever. And these are the kind of thoughts that block us from really living a fulfilled life, because we have to open the heart, harmonize it with the mind, and allow the mind to be in service of the heart. And then and with doing that, you activate the magic. That is how you activate the magic, by harmonizing the mind and the heart.
Yeah. Well, and I want to, my experience of it like you say, you have to activate it. And what's interesting is after having deactivated it on purpose for a long time, like many of us do, I think what happened for me was I'd start it while I was somewhere safe, and it would feel start, and I would have like kind of a, you know how you have that after circle glow for a while and you just feel, you feel super open, and then something happens to, and you're like, oh, I'm going to shut down again, right? Because and not that this not that something doesn't need to flex, right? Our heart should kind of ebb and flow just like everything does. And yet, because not everybody deserves all of our our full-hearted self, maybe. However, within ourselves, we always deserve our full-hearted self. So when I have practiced to activate my heart over and over again, it's more and more available to me. And it's not just this, when you speak of it, I think it's easy to sometimes think of it as this other, just a thought. It's another thought form. Our heart is another thought form that our mind has to understand, but it's not. It's literally a powerful electromagnetic field, more powerful than our brain's electromagnetic field, and it's literally doing the work of sensing everything. And I think the new science, the new testing is saying it enters a room 10 feet before us. Is that right? Something like
Yeah,
10.
there's this, yeah, it extends about, yeah, I think
And that's
that's
just as
right.
much as they can, that's just as much as they can test right now. It could be more. So your heart is entering a room to sense out danger or whatever you put it to task to do. You could also put it to task, and I tested this. Find me the most lit up person so I can go talk to them first. You can give it tasks, right? Give your heart more exciting tasks than how do I stay just safe. So Suzette, you talked about feeding the field, and I want to really, why is it super important to be aware of this field and how we feed it during a Chiron return? Do you have?
Yeah, so we have two choices. We can either consciously feed the field or we can unconsciously feed the field. And if you unconsciously feed the field, you're pretty much like a ship at sea without a wheel. And you're just going to be at the whim of where the tides will toss you. But if you consciously feed the field, you are making a choice how you want your life to be. How do you want? What kind of experience do you want? And then put that in the field. And that will come back to you. So if you want happiness, so if you want joy, so if you want peace, you feed that field with that energy to bring more of it back. If you want abundance, if you want, prosperity, you have to envision it, like really feel what it feels like to be in that state and really feel it in your heart and then radiate it out of your heart into the field. See it, feel it. And and that is really aligned with, like, if you follow the law of attraction or Abraham Hicks, the teachings of Abraham Hicks, that's how you can get into the vortex. That's by really feeling it. You have to feel what it is to be in that state that you want to bring more of. And that takes head and heart harmonization. And when you're visualizing, to really be able to put yourself there, to really be able to feel it, and consciously feed the field with what you want, as opposed to unconsciously feeding the field and getting what you get, which could be a bowl of lemons or a bowl of rotten lemons. It's just like, and some people just go all the way down the spiral until they go to their graves asleep to their lives and asleep to what could have been their full potential.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that for me, as somebody who, does not come to this work of manifestation and abundance. I'm a very kind of skeptical, pragmatic person. But I notice it's like this is, when we put it and we say, well, I want joy, but I do continue to do these things that block my joy, getting all bent out of shape over worrying and feeding the field with worrying and letting myself kind of believe, because all of our thoughts are kind of imaginary, right? Like when I recognize it's like, oh, my thoughts are imaginary. If I keep believing them, then that's how I'm going to operate. I'm going to operate like, well, something good happens, so I'm sure something bad's going to happen next. I better brace myself for that so I don't get too hurt. And you kind of live in this really weird half place. And especially looking at Chiron, Chiron was like, I am a wounded healer. I am who I am. I'm going to step into the world. I'm going to continue to heal people, even though I will never heal fully myself. He didn't let it be like, oh, well, I have to be this one thing or another. I think we talk ourselves into not fully forgiving ourselves for things that have come to pass that we think we may have been able to control in one way or another. But the fact is it doesn't even matter anymore. It doesn't matter. Everything's past, right? The now. Again, the heart knows the now, like you say. So when we engage the heart knows that right now we know better. Right now we can give ourselves space to dream about what we want in our lives. And by the way, it has nothing to do with, I think, this is kind of powerful, nothing to do with what's actually happening. Because there are people who have everything that you want right now, and all they do is worry too. So don't forget that it's not like once you get somewhere, everything's instantly better and everything feels amazing. You actually have to practice your emotions. Think about when you were young and you were joyous and excited, and this little girl was like, look at this, there's a unicorn on it, it's amazing. And your mom was like, unicorns don't even exist. Can you please just get your shoes on? We're late. Okay? I did this to my daughter, by the way, and I had to totally decide to get into her excitement, because recognizing the more you dumbed so we teach from a very young age. We learn from a very young age what emotions are acceptable, right? What emotions are met with, if you're too happy. I mean, I think that that's a pretty common thing, where if you're too excited as a young girl, you get kind of berated. They want to, kind of dumb you down, or not dumb you down, but just smash you down. They want you to stop having all your emotions. And like Suzette said, this emotional, if we are consciously feeding the field with these emotions of fear and the worry that happens from us not being enough, not good enough, I'm not enough, that loop that happens, and we never interrupt it, right? It can start to rule our lives in this very intense way, and we don't even know that it's happening. We don't even know. And until we wake up and we say, what have I done? And then we just want to berate ourselves for what we've done. But this place of forgiveness is real, and it begins by being in a heart-centered place. And I want to just say that this work can't be done alone. Okay? This work is not work to be done alone. It's one of the reasons both me and Suzette have spaces where we work with others and we help others to, support through this kind of work. It's very, very important to have allies who understand you, people who are your cheerleaders and want to help you feed the field that you want to grow. Think of the best field ever. Full of flowers. It's got the massive oak tree you can sit in when it's too hot. You've got, whatever. Think of it as a literal field, okay? Think of all the things you want to feed. And, having people to help you along that really does bring some joy. And I just want to say at this point, you are worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You are worth the time it takes to practice doing this,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So, Suzette, you wanted to speak about, stress and suffering and how that plays into surviving a Chiron return. And really, do you have much more to say about this right now that you
Yeah,
want to
actually,
share?
I do.
Yeah.
I do want to add something to the stress and suffering. See, one thing you want to do when you're in a Chiron return is you want to have access to your higher thinking faculties, the higher, wiser mind, the part of the mind that is responsible for planning the future, envisioning the future, manifesting the future, whatever. That's the larger part of the mind. And when you're stressed out, you get what's called cortically inhibited, and that means you don't have access to that part of your brain. You are stuck in survival mode. There's the emotional part of the brain, and then there's the reptilian part of the brain where it's all about the roof over the head, the food on the table, and surviving. Not really living. You're just kind of like, you're just living day to day, and just like a rolling stone, you're just going to be where you're going to be. And again, that's about, you end up, life just becomes fate, instead of destiny. So to really tap into your destiny, you have to get control of the stress and being able to challenge the perceptions and the thoughts that are driving the stress. Like, what is it? Recognizing them and then plugging those energy leaks and managing the perception that's driving the emotion of stress in that particular area. And it's like a muscle that you have to build up. Like when you don't go to the gym, when you don't exercise, when you don't work out your muscles start to atrophy. Well, this is the same thing. You have to build up the muscle of recognizing your emotions, recognizing where you are at any given moment, and consciously recognizing when you are in a low frequency emotion, because you're draining yourself, you're draining your energy. And when you do that, you are also making yourself susceptible to illness, because it's been proven that stress shrinks your immune system. So it not only blocks you and makes you cortically inhibited, it also shrinks your immune system and increases your risk to developing stress-related illnesses, which are numerous. As we get older, we start to show signs of the years of living under that level of stress, and it starts to show up and can even develop, on a cellular level, can show up as, from Caroline Mace's readings, she's linked it to cancer.
Yeah, all these autoimmune diseases too that come up, fibromyalgia, all the ones that are hard to track have been linked there as well.
Mm-hmm. So surviving, it's not about surviving a Chiron return. It's also about thriving. It's about understanding that stress is an energy. It's like one of the leading causes of illnesses, and why people have to like call in sick, and it just reduces the quality of life. And if this goes on, what happens is our set point is raised, is the bar is so low. Our set point is so low. Like our body starts to think, oh, this is our natural state of being. So then you fall asleep to it. You fall asleep to this rogue program that's running in the background. And then it's like, it's just starting to drive your bus. And it's just, you don't realize it. It's just like you go unconscious to it, and you just start to play out this program that just keeps producing the same stress and suffering. But once you wake up to it, once you wake up to your heart, once you wake up to your inner guidance, and once you wake up to the way to manage the stress and bring it into control, and at will shift into a more empowered feeling. You know, gratitude brings it back. Compassion brings it back. Forgiveness brings it back. All these emotions are emotions that can be activated at will and brought back into your heart. And then you come back into what's called coherence. When your mind and your heart are working in harmony, and the stress is, you know, you shift it out of that stressful state. That is a skill that must be built up. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in one day. It takes time. It takes persistence. And that's another reason why, you know, it's hard to do this alone. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've worked together for a long time, and now we are collectively doing this. And it's interesting because it's used in the circle practice, and we met through the Wild Woman Project, and there was always this bring your head into your heart centering. And as you went on to become heart math coach certified and taught me about what heart math is and how we can, yeah, like you say, we have to practice this. And it's interesting now, having done it for a while. Of course, I still have to practice it, lest I can tell when I haven't practiced it in a while because it's less available to me. But it's just the same as if we work out, say you work out and you're the best shape of your life after 6 months, and then you decide, well, I just don't have to do that anymore. I guarantee in 6 months, you're not going to be able to do as many push-ups. You're not going to, so when we know life is stressful, this is the thing. We know that we're going to suffer. We know that people will die in our lives. We will lose people. We will lose jobs. We will lose friends. We will be put into stressful situations where we have to hold our own boundaries and care for others. We will be put in situations that will test the resilience of our heart over and over again in this life. And I would say that as we come into our midlife, when we face our 50s, when we get to this point where we know the responsibility we have and how we must own that, it starts to pile on if we don't have the resilience to do that. And this is why not just thriving or surviving, but thriving is important. Because especially as women, we hold so much of our community in compassion. We are the creators of community in so many instances. We teach others what it's like to live in unity and harmony. And not to say that it's all on us, but we know that we've always had this heart connection. I think any mother knows very easily the reason why you sleep with your children is because their hearts are learning your resonance. They're learning your resilience. They're learning that electromagnetic field connection is real. And they've finally scienced it so that the patriarchy will listen, but we have known this in our bodies for a long time. But like I said, as we get to a point of midlife, we know the weight of what it means to be disconnected from that space, but it's not always conscious. And so we go around trying, one of the things that I've been focusing on is this, this what this looks like in mothers who have, given so much and sacrificed so much. And they know what stress and suffering can do to a body because they experience it in their body. So they go around trying to make everything nice for everyone else. What we're definitely focusing on here in this work and facing your 50s is creating space for rebranding this midlife crisis we've always talked about. Because as you understand the weight of responsibility for being a heart engaged person, it's about managing your nervous system. It's about literally allowing your body to run at optimal resilience and coherence with your heart so that you can harmonize and bring into balance what's going on around you so that you're not impacted in the same way that causes, so many illnesses from here until our deathbeds. And it also allows us to actually access our desires.
Yep.
So I want you to, tell us about these stories.
So we all have stories that we tell ourselves that came from traumas, that came from bad experiences, that came from other people's perception of right and wrong, or who we should or shouldn't be, or what we should and shouldn't do. And we, as long as we remain loyal to those old stories, they have full influence and full reign over our lives. I'm unworthy, I'm undeserving, I can't make it on my own, I can't make it without this person, I can't make it without this, or I can't do it without that, or I can't do this, I'm not worthy enough, I'm not capable enough, I'm not worthy, I'm everyone always rejects me, everyone always abandons me. I mean, you name it. I mean, it can be anything. Whatever it is that keeps you locked in a holding pattern, looping and miserable and just going into a downward spiral. To reverse the downward spiral, you have to face these stories. You have to find them one by one. And if you can envision them as archetypes, you can see their energetic presence in your life. And then you can learn about that archetype. You can learn about how to make friends with it, because apparently it wants to teach you something. But these old stories, they have to somehow be resolved and transmuted and transformed, because on the other side of that challenge, on the other side of that old story, is a new one that you get to write, that you get to rewrite for yourself if you can wake up to it. So to thrive in a Chiron return means one by one you got to face these stories, and with your tools and your support system, you can one by one begin to face them, come to terms with them, understand them, make friends, embrace, question, learn, and then lay it down, replacing it with the new one you create for yourself, and not what somebody else created for you or expects from you. We are born with free will, and that is one thing that is not to be given away to anyone. So to survive a Chiron return is to be fully in the present, fully in your heart, because power, you are most powerful in the present. And when you give your power away, you become disempowered and you become stuck in loops, never-ending loops that will never end until you lay down the old stories. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I always feel like, Prita! I just think that this is an archetype itself of laying down the old stories. And you, I think it's a powerful way to work with Chiron as an archetype, because Chiron had to lay down the story of being abandoned by his parents. He had to lay down the thought that he was unlovable, that he had done something wrong, that nobody would want him. Now, of course, he had support and was redeemed, but he still could believe, just those, all the beliefs are optional. When we're wounded, we make really interesting decisions about what we believe, and they're all optional. All of our beliefs are optional.
Yeah. And the thing about the wounded healer, Chiron, is that he could have probably said, oh, I'm worthless. Oh, I'm just going to lock myself away from the world and just,
Yeah.
he could have been broken.
Yeah.
He could have been broken by his situation, but he did not. He rose.
Yeah.
He rose.
And he became known as, someone who proof that you can overcome something. To be that I think that's one of the greatest inspirations, especially as we're trying to integrate, and heal from some of these wounds as we lay these old stories down. When we rewrite our stories, when we say, and it's not just necessarily being the heroine in your story, but that even if you can say, I survived this, and from my own resilience, notice your resilience. Because you survived something, you are resilient. You don't have to go looking very far to find that proof. But instead, what your brain will do is find proof to keep you kind of stuck and safe, because that's what our brains are wired to do. It wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us in the cave. It wants us to stay quiet and small and not create and not get any attention, because it feels vulnerability is unsafe and dangerous. And this is also why right now, as we all rise together and as humans kind of begin to awaken the power of our hearts, this is a new way that we can wire our nervous system to trust first our own heart, and then the hearts of others who are also in this with us. And I think, Suzette and I have talked a lot about that process unfolding in our own friendship. We met as adults, and the opening of our hearts, our hearts, and to some degree, Chiron taught us through becoming friends and becoming collaborators together in this work and supporting each other in a way that would not have been possible with our old stories, before we laid some old stories down, and then that's what created this class here. And this feeling that's in my heart right now, that I know is in Suzette's right now, for having this moment together with everyone who's watching now and watching the replay, but we get to decide and prove what's possible going forward. And it begins with, like Suzette said, this consciousness of the field, what we're feeding it, activating our heart, working with our wounds in a way that allows the gift to come forward. And then laying down those stories and for what they really are, they're stories. And if you were to look at them like the archetype and teach them differently, how would that shift?
Yeah. Yes. So I think we wanted to take everyone into a brief meditation right now. Okay. So for this piece, I want to introduce everyone to my drum moon singer. She's going to help us right now.
I clicked the button. I'm gonna hide myself.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, sure. So everybody, breathe deep. And dropping into your heart, feel your heart in the center of your chest. Focus your attention in the area of the heart. Imagine the breath flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing deeper and slower and normal. And now while you are in your heart, allow a mental picture from your heart to turn on the movie screen in your mind's eye. And on this movie screen, you see a door in a dimly lit hallway. And you walk towards this doorway in this darkened hallway, lit gently by a soft lantern on a table in the hall. Casting a warm glow in this hallway and a glimmer on the brass doorknob to this door. And you reach for that doorknob, slowly turning it, gently pushing it open, slowly and steady. And as you open this door, you walk into a room lit gently, glowing by beautiful candlelight. One single candle sits on the far side of the room. And you close the door behind you gently, and you follow the glowing candle across the room. You notice something off to the right. You see a second candle on a table by a bed. And in this bed, you see yourself your future self, your older self. Notice the silvery strands of your beautiful hair. And beautiful wrinkles showing a life fully lived. You see yourself on the last day of your life, and you're there with yourself on this last day. And as you walk closer to yourself, and you sit there at the bedside of yourself, your older self casts a loving gaze towards you and smiles gently and lovingly. And she said to you, "Thank you. Thank you for making those tough decisions when you did. I have lived such a full life, and I am so grateful to you. Because if you hadn't have made those choices, I wouldn't be here peacefully, peaceful in my heart on this last day on earth." I want you to think about what those hard decisions were. What were those hard decisions? What is she talking about? Really see it. Really feel it. What are those decisions? What did you do? Feel into that. Feel it deeply. Those things. See them. Wake up to it. And as you gaze back from your heart to your future self, you reach out and you hold your hand, hand in hand, future self and past self, the self in the here and now, your present self. Lovingly holding the hand of this radiant being as she celebrates her life with you on her last day on earth. She has one question to leave with you to make sure that you remember that your story has yet to be written. And she wants to make sure to follow that path, to make come true a peaceful last day, grateful heart and feeling and energy of that last day. And the question is, if not now, then when? And your older self asks you to ask yourself this question. Every time you are faced with a decision, with a choice, a point of power, if not now, then when? So that time doesn't escape you. So that you don't go to your last day filled with regret. Should have done this. Should have done that. Why didn't I do this? No. Your older self tells you, I want to be peaceful, filled, and grateful on my last day. So please, as a seed, question, if not now, then when? And from this vision, please come back into your heart. Please send love and blessings to your older self. Please send love and blessings to yourself. And come back to the room. And when you come back to your room, to this room, write in your journal what your future self is talking about. What are the tough decisions? What are the decisions she's talking about? What did you do? What are the choices that made the difference for your experience, for your peace on that very last day? And welcome back into the room. And heartfelt gratitude and thanks for joining me on this journey. And I'm turning it back over to Jennifer.
So, thank you for that. That was beautiful. And I'm glad I turned off my video. I am, you know, it's always, I've met my crone self several times in visualizations now, and she's looking better than she used to. I can imagine her it much differently than I did. So I think that that's really beautiful and telling for myself. It's good feedback. So right now, I'd love to open it for questions. I think that there's no questions that I see in the chat box right now. So if you have something you'd like us to speak to, or if you have a particular question about even how you're experiencing, or share something that you are um, actually having, if you're experiencing this Chiron return time, and how it's coming through for you, right? So, because your voice is as important as what we've pulled out. So, I see Maggie's got something to say. Maybe you could tell us how you're experiencing this and what is the biggest, focus on, use us, right? Let us speak to your biggest struggle right now, the thing that is keeping you shut down, or um,
So, Maggie, I'm going to unmute you. And are you there? Can you,
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to ask the question, but I'm suck at
yeah,
this.
yeah, no, go ahead. And I've unmuted you. You can go ahead and just talk.
Well, okay. March was the hardest month I've had in decades. And I realize now my Chiron, I'm 53, my Chiron being in the sign of Pisces just shifted into Aries, my sun sign. And I have a whole lot of Mars, Aries sun, Mercury is in Pisces, Venus and Saturn in Pisces, besides my Chiron. And it's just been an emotional shit mess. And I consciously have this higher mind that with my heart breathing and things, and that I know this will pass, that I need to feel the feels, ask myself the questions. I've been journaling. I've been having to stay really isolated in order to cope, because I'm also working in a job where this empath is in touch with hundreds and thousands of people a day, and I need better shields, because I had, on a psychic level, a bunch of things attached to me. So I got that cleaned out, got my massage. Now I'm doing the self-care, but I just feel a bit lost on it all, and it's pissing me off. So now I have this anger I'm facing, and it's like, okay, is this my motivator, or what hurt me that's making me so angry? Those are the things that work for me. And I'm just not sure right now. However, my older self was jumping on the bed, laughing at me with joy, and then she split and laid down and just went to sleep with a smile. And so I feel like I'm on the right track. I'm just lacking my focus, so my ADD is like looking at everything instead of what I am doing right. There we go.
I also, and Suzette, I want to hear your piece of this, because I think we both, I woke up, I think, to my desires through anger.
Yeah.
And I think anger is a really important piece for women to feel, because we're told that we shouldn't be angry. In fact, we definitely are asked to remain quiet, and we're gaslighted into believing we shouldn't be angry and that we're overreacting. And so, I know you're doing
Exactly.
the work. I know you're doing the work, and I think you are on the right track. And the work of breathing into the heart and trying to center yourself as an empath, regardless of the situation, is going to serve you, because you're going to be put in the world as you become stronger more and more. And it's okay to be patient, and gentle with yourself. Well,
Okay.
it's important to cultivate patience
That's
with
a better way
yourself.
to put it. Thank you. I
Yeah,
can deal with that.
yeah. It's and healing can happen in an instant too. So allow it to be as whimsical as you like. But the anger can be, I think anger is, the first sign of grieving these old stories.
I thank you for pointing that out. That really hit my heart. I think that I'm not
Yeah.
allowing that.
That's how I experienced it. And I think one of the first calls me and Suzette had together, I told her I was so angry. Do you remember that, Suzette?
Mm-hmm.
That's the emotion that presented itself first. And I was angry at being angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's pissing me off. It's not
Yeah.
what I want. It's like, okay, this energy is here for a purpose. I know sometime I chose this to learn this, but WTF?
Yeah. And that's where you go back to your heart.
And we got
Yeah.
Rose. Rose typed in, I am struggling at this time to remain motivated in my work. I've been serving others for nearly 30 years, and I often feel right now as if I'm done. But of course, I can't stop working, but my depression and anxiety are really heightened.
Yeah.
I can relate to what Maggie is saying. I'm feeling really lost about what to do about it.
Yeah. I feel you.
Thank you for sharing that, Rose. I think, the first piece of it is recognizing that what you're going through, and I think especially as we start to see this work emerge, you're clearly not alone. And I think it's been something we've called this midlife crisis, as if it's coming out of nowhere. But when you start to, like Suzette said, look at the places where these wounds began, where you feel unseen, not listened to, as it starts to heighten and amplify, and we've shoved everything down.
Mm-hmm.
Suzette, do you have a practice that she might start with that is accessible, or
Yeah,
this?
so I definitely would love to encourage. I'll definitely speak about a tool that can be helpful in this. Before I do, I want to share out of the Soulful Woman guidebook regarding anger. It's a lovely book. Anger, and it's card number 10, Anger as My Sacred Ally. I respect my anger as an expression of my passion for life, as a setter of boundaries, and as a protective force within me. When I use my anger wisely, it is a great ally to me, a sacred gift of power. I harness the gift of my anger to liberate myself, awaken myself from self-deception, and show me where I have lacked courage. I listen to my anger and learn to transform it into a positive force for good. I use my anger as a healing flame to burn off that which no longer serves me, never as a destructive fire to harm myself or others. Card affirmation. I listen to the messages within my anger and use it as a positive force for good.
Yes.
I
Thank
love
you.
how that card says, first, how I don't use it against myself. I think especially as women, it's really easy for us to notice when our anger gets out of hand because we don't want to hurt others. So we stuff down our anger, which actually poisons ourselves. And we don't learn that, this engagement with this feeling of anger can be, a servant. As long as the heart is the management team. Right?
Key heart.
So one way to turn down the volume of stress is a tool called heart breathing. It's a heart breathing exercise. And you envision yourself. Well, first you find a place to be still, and it's called heart focused breathing, and you use this tool to turn down the volume of stress. It's a heart math technique. And it's just the first step and it's a foundational step because all other tools and techniques are built upon this one exercise. This is the very first piece of any of the tools. And this helps to turn down the volume of the stress. And it begins by getting still. It begins by focusing on the heart and breathing slowly and deeply through your heart and just putting everything away. Every thought, every niggling thought, you just push it aside for the moment, and you allow yourself to have a space where you can drop into the heart, breathe deeply in and out through the heart. And as you're doing that, start activating a compassionate energy, a gratitude, a feeling of gratitude. Start thinking about what blessings you have in your life and to really think on those blessings. And to really feel that gratitude come into your heart as you're breathing fully, deeply in and out through your heart. And you allow yourself to drop into that lovely, yummy energy. And you allow yourself to just shift into this place. And that is the exercise. You know, you do this for 5 minutes, or you do this as long as you can. But you don't move from that spot until you have fully melted away, because you can't focus on two things at the same time. So if you're focusing on the gratitude, if you're letting your whole being fill your space with the energy of gratitude and allowing yourself to really marinate in this yummy energy of gratitude, while holding yourself with great compassion and kindness and love. These are all healing, regenerative energies. These energies recharge your inner battery. And so you allow yourself to heal in this compassion soak, the soak in gratitude.
I feel compelled to say that this will come with resistance. We have learned to indulge in other feelings. Think of how we stew in our anger. How easy is that for you to bring up somebody who makes you so angry, who makes you feel like a victim, who makes you feel like you're stuck? You know, how easy is it for us to indulge in that space? And notice if it is really difficult for you to soak in gratitude. Notice that that's where your attention has flowed and that you've given your focus to. And it takes time and it's worth it. You're worth it. And it may feel like, oh, this isn't working. That's still the resistance. There's a beast within you who wants to indulge in these lower vibrational emotions, right? Because it feels like it's survival mode. But after you kind of start to kick these on more often, you will vibe with this more easily, I'm telling you. And you will be able to stop yourself mid anger spiral, mid shit show, and fan fan the flames in a different way. And it's pretty incredible. And man, it takes work and it takes support. And like Suzette says, it's just that heart breathing is the basis of it. But it's relearning to tune your body towards relaxing into those spaces of your consciousness. Yeah. Yeah. And are there any other? Oh, we've got a question from Cheryl. Thank you. I'm 55 and have recently become so aware of really old spiritual wounds and how I've let myself become stuck because of them. Can you talk about how you lay old stories down? In my case, these wounds are intertwined with family who still continue these behaviors. This is so common. It makes it hard to lay old stories down when there are constant reminders.
So we can't control the behaviors of others,
Mm-hmm.
but we can choose how to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that helps is to realize that they're coming from a frame of reference, they're coming from old templating beliefs, they're stuck under old dysfunctional beliefs, and for that, we have to feel compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes a real act of will to break out of old beliefs, because these beliefs can go back generations.
Yeah.
Right? We have to wake up to the fact that these are inherited, or where did this come from, or maybe from experience, but we can't control how others feel.
Mm-hmm.
We have to somehow find the strength within ourselves to stand in our own truth and to not be moved by what others think of us, because we begin to live from the inside out. We begin to live from the heart. And as a result, we begin to radiate that. And no one can argue with that. That is an energy that can be felt when someone is in their heart, standing in their truth.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You can begin to see it for what it is and have compassion for them, that they're still stuck, and just lovingly detach from the thoughts and opinions of others, and agree to disagree while standing in your heart and in your truth powerfully. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. This is, like you say, this is ancestral patterning, probably almost always, because there's so many references flowing through my mind right now, but one is a song where it says, my father, I learned from my dad, who learned from his dad, who learned from his dad, who learned from his dad, who happened to be wrong about everything. We learn what access to emotions we have, how we co-author relationships to each other. And if we're co-authoring, stories, like you say, these stories of who we are co-authored with the people we love. And as we start to change those stories, people start to really get triggered themselves, and they'll attack you from the tribe mentality and say, you can't do that. This is who you are. And then that speaks to that part of you that says, who do you think you are? Right? So you start to get up against, right? When you start to recognize these old patterns you're stuck in, and you're having a wake-up call, right? And I think that's too why anger might be one of the first sirens to go off, is because we've shifted our system in order to be integrated into something where we're co-authoring a story that's not serving us. And we recognize how much we've played into this, because like we can't change others, but we can change our response.
Mm-hmm.
I do this practice. I learned it from Byron Katie. And Byron Katie is she's kind of a spiritual guru. She has something called The Work. But I think it's really in line with this, where, she talks about arguing with reality, right? And so when we all have our stories, and if you want to argue with my reality, like, we lose 100% of the time. If I'm telling you what my opinion is, that's literally just my reality. And to argue with that is just silly. So I have that pattern of arguing with my father about our realities. And I recently actually had a breakthrough, because I told him, I said, I don't need to be right. I'm letting you know what my reality is. And that's what my reality is. There's actually no way for you to argue with my reality, right? And because it's made up of my experience and it's my reality. What I love to do when he's saying something that insists upon his reality, but he's not necessarily conscious that it's just a story that he has in his brain, I just say, is that true? I haven't experienced that. Or I'll say, is that true? I've been really thinking a lot about how that might not be true. Because it can shift that old story and shift the energy of being stuck and engage it in a curious co-creation. All of a sudden, we're curiously mining our old stories for new truth. And I think, Suzette and I went through this together as well while we were working out how to become friends as adults, which I think is such a huge needed thing. And to collaborate and to work together and learn to trust, especially when you're learning to trust yourself in the same way. And all these old stories come up, so asking questions about that reality can kind of break the dream, right? Because I think we all know what it feels like to co-author some lie.
Yeah.
And we tiptoe around, thinking we'll wait till somebody dies to be ourselves. We'll wait till, I don't have to tell my parents the truth, or and that still doesn't feel awesome. It feels terrible.
I think from an energetic standpoint, to call out a story, like, because it's so deeply ingrained in your experience and our experiences that we fall asleep to it. So the only way to know that it's there is when it triggers anger, when it triggers a negative response. If you look at it as a breadcrumb, and then you follow the breadcrumb, and then you're like, okay, here I'm getting angry, or this is depressing me, or I'm getting triggered. Like, okay, where is this coming from? What is the emotion driving this? Why am I feeling this way? What is the belief that is driving this emotion?
Yeah.
Really get to the heart of what is causing it. What is driving this? What is feeding this emotion? What is the
there's that
driving force
field
behind that? What is the driving belief?
Yep.
Driving this emotion? What's driving my anger?
Yeah.
What's driving my anxiety? And really ask it. And then when you get to it, you're like, okay, what is this about? Is this true?
Yes.
Is this really true?
That's a powerful question. Is that true? Yes. Yeah. Because it breaks the dream of the story. It breaks the lie of the story. And some of these stories, we rely on them to do things for us, right? If we have a story that we're chronically anxious, now this may be true. It's your experience. I'm not taking that away in any way. But notice that we give our power to this story. And that helps us to say no to things that we're not willing to say no to. I'm having a really hard time today. I'm not going to be able to show up for that. Now, sometimes that happens to be things that we really wanted to show up for, and that anxiety becomes debilitating, right? But I think that happens after using that. Sometimes those illnesses and those we use those as stories so that we don't have to actually confront, no, I'm not interested in going and hanging out with you. Actually, after I hang out with you, I feel like all we do is, feed the field of my fear, and I stay small, and I eat too much cheese and drink too much wine, or whatever that field is, and we get to decide, I think, differently when we recognize how those stories have given us permission. What do we have power over in our lives, and how we give our power away to different things so that they can make decisions for us. Now, and we do that with a lot of different things in our lives. How much money we think we need to make, how much time we think we have, who relies on us. Oh, well, they're counting on me to do this. No one else will do it this way. I think that's a big trap a lot of us get into. No one else can do it as well as I can.
Yeah. So it really is about waking up to, again, What are we feeding the field? And we feed the field with our emotions. And our emotions are driven by thoughts, and our thoughts are beliefs, and beliefs were either installed by a tradition in the family or through our own, experiences. They all come together to form who we are right now. So basically, to survive a Chiron return and to thrive instead of go down in flames really means facing the realities of who you are as an energetic being, and that you have the power to to create your existence. And I see now that there's another.
We're hitting time. We're about 11:40 now.
Yep.
And but yeah, I think just to close that, Suzette, that's a really important, kind of way, because Cheryl's question really about how do we lay these old stories down, it's about confronting them first. And, there's, noticing them and noticing the emotion that comes up, and then naming the story behind that, naming the belief behind that, and practicing that. And again, these things are definitely, you need allies in this too. So seek out people that can help you. Both Suzette and I have work that we do specifically with heart math on Suzette's side, and working with the astrology of your natal chart on my side. So, we work with that, and there are many other resources, but the magic question here, back to your crone self, right?
If not now, then when?
Yeah, then when?
Yeah.
Don't let it be on your deathbed, right?
Right. So thank you for showing up. Thank you, everyone. Mwah.
Yep. Thank you for watching the replay. And we are so excited to do this. We're gonna run this, and it'll get bigger and bigger. Thank you so much for being here.
Yep. And my website is wildheartsrising.com.
And my website is paintedgoddess.com.
Yep. So check us out.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Blessed be.
Bye, all.